Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Vibes. I'd love to welcome here Alexandra Cheho. Now, she is an astrologer, and you're a master of Hermetic philosophy. I'm curious as what that is, but before we get into that, tell us a little bit more about you.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm a woman of many hats, as is befitting a Gemini. So I've been studying astrology for over 20 years. I'm also a guide and international instructor with the Modern Mystery School, where I specialize in teaching astrology. And so it is a school of Hermetic philosophy, which is all about the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, who dates back to 6 to 8,000 years ago.
Wow.
And and so I've been in practice for about 20 years. I started off doing individual practice and since then have transitioned into helping amazing entrepreneurs use the tools of astrology to launch their ideas and businesses into the world so that they can make an impact.
Why did you decide to hone in on that aspect of it instead of just more broader?
Well, to be honest with you, Kyle, there's a lot of amazing people who really have some beautiful ways that they can serve the world.
Mhm.
And so one of the core teachings in the lineage that I study with is that of service. And in our world today, businesses are literally how you bring your service out into the world. And so there's a lot of people, who call themselves soulpreneurs now. And they have these amazing concepts and services and products that they really want to make an impact with. And I'm a big believer in making the world a better place. And so whatever I can do to serve them in launching that forward, it's always my honor and pleasure.
But does that entail maybe when you can start your business and what direction you should go in? I mean, how in depth does that go?
Oh my, well, in the system that I work with, we actually start, it really depends on if you already have launched your business or if you are looking to launch one. So for myself, for example, I specified the day that my business became an entity because there were certain energies that I wanted in play. However, for people who've already launched their business, what we do is we start by doing, I guess, what you could call a business diagnostic of the astrology chart of your business. And so we look at what is the purpose of the business? Is it aligned with where you want to go? Who are the people and networks that are going to support that business? How are you going to get that message out into the world? Who are your friends in that sense, right? And then from there, you can work with forecasting as a tool to select launch dates, to book events, or even if you have contracts that you want to negotiate, or licenses that you need to apply for, or property that you want to acquire, you can use the timing of astrology to help you with those things. And so whether it is current events or whether it is forecasting directly to the business chart, there are windows of opportunity where you can have the stars acting as the wind that fills your sails so that you can actually take your business farther for the efforts that you're putting in. It just gives you that little bit of extra edge that makes things just a little bit better.
Now, when you do that, the person who's running the business, does it go with their birthday and that kind of thing? Or how does that work?
Well, you know what? Because your personal natal chart is really important. Because if you understand your strengths, versus what's needed for the business to thrive and succeed, that's really important. So I always like to work with entrepreneurs first with their individual chart so that they can understand themselves, so that they can understand their strengths, their areas of wisdom, what they bring to the table. Because when you want to launch a business, or for those of you who are in the thick of it, having your own business is going to challenge you. And specifically, it's going to challenge your weaknesses. So whatever your personal failings are, that's going to translate to the business. And so when you understand your personal strengths and the areas that perhaps you need a little bit of assistance with, that will actually make your launch more successful. And then from there, when you look at the natal chart of the business itself, then you can ascertain who are your friends? What are the kinds of people you want to hire? Who do you want to advertise with? Who are the best people to seek referrals from? When are the best dates to launch this product or to put out a promotion? And so astrology can be really helpful in that way. And so royalty and statesmen have used it for, thousands of years before us. And so I figured, why not do the same for people who want to do good in the world?
Have you ever had to tell somebody that they shouldn't start a business?
I'm going to be honest with you. I've told them to delay, but I've never told them not to.
Hmm.
One of the things that I truly believe in is the power of will. And if you think of will as a creational force, I'm not talking about willpower as a mind, but I mean will as a creational force. We all have the ability to create. And I'm never going to tell somebody that they can't. What I will tell them is maybe you need a little more preparation, or maybe you need to revisit this concept so that when you do, launch or move forward with this project, you're going to see success because preparation is one of the biggest aspects of success.
How long does it take to make up one of these charts?
To actually make up the chart, it's really easy. If you were talking to me in my childhood years when I was out there using the ephemeris and doing the mathematical calculations, it would have taken me a couple hours. But to actually make up the chart, it's very simple now. You literally enter the information, into whatever astrological program you're using, and it will produce the chart itself. And so if you're looking for your own personal chart, you would want to know your date of birth, your birth location, and your birth time. And then if you're looking at like a business entity, you would want to know the date of incorporation and where. Because generally, the corporation comes into existence at midnight. And so you can use the midnight as the birth time. And from there, an astrologer can just plug that in and create the chart and begin giving you information, either on yourself and what you're bringing to the table and how to support the areas that aren't necessarily your strengths or maybe you're not as aware of. And the same thing for the business, because you might have a business chart that does really amazing with marketing, but let's say you have a product-based business and you have say Jupiter in a detrimented position, and so it's hard for you to find suppliers. Well, how are you going to serve the world if you can get the word out there, but you can't fulfill your word? You're going to look non-credible, right? And so when you understand those positions of the business chart, you can also bolster your business and your service in the world in a way so that not only can you get the word out there, but you can also meet the expectations of what you say you're going to do and have that integrity in your service.
One thing I've been curious about since I knew what astrology was, how in the world does an alignment of a star affect your life? I mean, how does these things determine how this stuff happens? And who in the world even discovered that in the first place?
Oh my gosh. Okay, Kyle, that is such a multi-layered answer. But I'll put it to you this way. So first of all, the first founder of astrology was Hermes Trismegistus, and as I mentioned, he is said to have existed anywhere from 6 to 8,000 years ago. Now, when it comes to astrology and how alignment of the stars can affect things, well, the planets give off an energy. And as human beings, many people are familiar with the fact that we have an energy body. So we have an aura, we have chakras, and that's what makes us receptive to these shifts in forces. So in the same way that we respond to things like gravity, we also respond to forces that come from these planets. And so, for example, Venus is an attractive force. Similar to gravity in a way. And so Venus governs over things like relationships. And so when there are shifts in her energy, that impacts our ability to attract or bond to things. And so we receive all of that energy through the aura, through the chakras to varying degrees. Because for someone whose chakras are, big and open, they're going to receive, those shifts to a greater degree than someone whose energy field is more closed off. And so one of the big shifts that everybody notices is the full moon. And so we are receptive to the light of the moon, and through that energy body, we work with its ebbs and flows. And so, this is just a funny fact. My brother's actually a 911 operator, and he knows not midnights, full moons are going to be crazy.
Yeah.
He knows it. And so we just had Canadian Thanksgiving over the weekend, and I asked him, is it going to be a busy weekend? And he's like, no, it's not a full moon. It won't be too bad.
Does does history tell you how they figured this out?
Well, the Sumerians, they actually watched the stars or planets, really. They couldn't quite distinguish between them at that point in time. But they actually observed the effects of the planets on weather. And so that was how the Sumerians were able to determine the nature of the planets. And so if you go back into the oldest writings of astrology, you will see descriptors of the planets that really resemble how we would describe our weather. So for example, Saturn is cold and dry. So they knew that when Saturn was in a certain position, it was going to bring weather that was colder and drier than normal. Whereas Mars is hot and dry. And so if they observed Mars in a certain place, they knew that they were going to have hotter, drier weather than usual. And there are entire branches of astrology that are literally dedicated to weather prediction, as well as volcanic activity as well. Now, that's not my area of specialty, but it's definitely something that I found fascinating when I was a lot younger.
Well, I've always been fascinated by it. I never really was to the point where I wanted to get into it.
Well, it
It's
was the
curious.
Sumerians who really started it for us, and I mean it's no wonder if you think back then, they were very dependent on weather in order to produce crops in abundance in order to sustain their society, right? And so they tracked observable changes for years in a way that's kind of similar to what we have now with the Farmer's Almanac, right? And so astrology was just their version of that, except that it goes much deeper than simply effects on the weather because it absolutely affects our psyche. And so they named the planets after the gods because those are the archetypes that humanity connects to. And so we have all of those archetypes within us. And so there is a God of love inside of us. There is a God of intelligence inside of us. There is a God of war inside of us. There is a God of abundance inside of us. And so as the planets move, they affect that archetypal consciousness within us.
Well, I hear you say that it affects your mental health, but does it affect your physical health as well?
So it absolutely can. There's an entire branch of astrology, literally called medical astrology. And there are doctors in the Caribbean who practice medical astrology. And
Wow.
so here's a little pro tip for everyone who's listening. If you know what sign Mars is in your chart, that's actually the first place that stress will go in your body before it goes anywhere else.
Wow.
And and so each of the zodiac signs has been allocated different parts of the body. And so whatever sign Mars is in, that's where stress goes. And so before it can break out into anything else, it will go there. And so very often when I do my individual chart readings, and I work with people because Mars also tells you about what stresses you, right? Because we know stress is absolutely detrimental to the body. And so when you understand what your stressors are, right? What are the weak points that pressure can work against, and where that's going to show up in your body, then you know that maybe you need to make some decisions. So, can astrology affect your physical health? It can, but usually it's not a direct link. I would say that it can indicate your predispositions, would be the best answer.
Do you have a website?
Oh, yes. So, if you're interested in astrology and want to know more, you can find me at astrologerroyale.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at Pallas, Pallas.Alex. And I also have a free ebook on my website. So it's called, oh my goodness, where's my brain right now? I've lost it. Star Powered Resilience. There it is. And so it is a free ebook that gives you some zodiac-based insights into your professional strengths and talents and how stress can impact your performance. And so my little pro tip for anybody who goes and downloads it is if you can look up your chart and find your Mercury sign and your Mars sign, and read up on those as well, because that's going to give you greater in-depth than simply just your zodiac sign.
Cool. And what is your social media?
Oh, yes. Well, you can find me on Facebook, Alexandra Cheho. And then I'm also on Substack as well. And so I have a collection of articles that I post there, more so, I guess you could say, as an astrological forecast of what's upcoming. So if you're ever feeling out of sorts and you don't know why, and you look up in the sky and it's not a full moon, you can always find out what's happening there, at Astrologer Royale on Substack too.
Do you have a YouTube or anything like that?
At the moment, I don't, but I do have a media library on my website, astrologerroyale.com. And so you can find different videos, podcasts, and also docu-series that I have appeared on as well.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It was my absolute pleasure, Kyle. Thank you so much for having me.
And also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button from our regulars. You guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Till the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network